Hi, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Explicitly Pro-Life podcast. I'm your host, Kristen Hawkins. And as you know, we're talking about winning pro-life strategies this mini season. And today I'm so honored to have an amazing woman, a warrior for life in Denver, Colorado, Dede Chism. Dede is the co-founder and executive director of Bella Natural Women's Care and Family Wellness. If you've been in Denver the last few years, you've probably heard about Bella. They've done some remarkable things there, and it's so innovative. So I'm so excited to have a conversation with Dede. She is a nurse and has a long degree, long career in nursing, especially as a perinatal nurse practitioner at Regis University in Denver. She's worked with high-risk pregnancies for over 25 years. She's done medical missions to the high Andes of Peru. She's also the founding member of the National Consortium of Pro-Women's Healthcare Centers that just launched last year. She consults to multiple groups across the country who want to now duplicate her model there in Denver with Bella. So I am so excited to have her on today. Dede, thanks for joining us.
Kristen, I'm so happy to be with you. It's so great to see you.
Yeah, I know. Normally we cross paths at various conferences and we see each other in the hallways or get to talk on a panel for a few moments and that's it. So it's kind of nice to have just a normal conversation.
It is. It's kind of like having coffee.
Yeah, that's exactly how I describe the Explicitly Pro-Life. So I asked you on because I was thinking about in my travels across the country, and I get to meet so many amazing leaders who are doing such innovative work to really reach those most vulnerable to abortion and serve women. And what you guys are doing in Denver is just phenomenal. Can you tell everyone kind of listening and tuning in what Bella is and why you all have founded it? Because I think everyone's going to be really excited by this.
Sure. And it is exciting. It's kind of like a tale of just life and a tale of listening, which you know all about because this is your life as well. But after being a nurse practitioner for 20 years and being on the medical mission, my daughter is also a nurse practitioner. We really felt like the Lord was asking us to bring that mission spirit back home. And when we were in the high Andes, the thing that struck us the most was the domestic violence and the poverty. And women were beat so often that it's common in healthcare to say questions such as, are you in a safe relationship? Or, have you had a history of abuse or something like that? But when you are in the high Andes, you actually say, when was the last time you were hit? And that could be this morning. That could be earlier in the week. It could have been a month ago if your husband is away at the mines. But the domestic violence was so big, and the life issues were big because people didn't want to have a lot of kids, because if they have kids, they're going to be beat. And so it's a mess when you get there. But what the Lord was telling us is like, there is a mess everywhere. And this life issue is bigger than what you can even imagine. I want you to go home and I want you to recognize that there is poverty in every single soul. And it doesn't have to be the people in the high Andes. It doesn't even have to be the people on the street. That you're going to find poverty in the richest of your people and the poorest of your people, and in everything in between. And so he asked us to just enter into that mess. And, for all my life, I had practiced very faithfully and very pro-life as a nurse practitioner. And in the higher risk pregnancy world, that isn't the norm. It is very, very common, as I know that that a perinatologist, a maternal fetal medicine specialist will see a woman with a complication with their child in utero, and they will offer them as an option an abortion. And it was, that piece was always a struggle for me. So I had very, very clear guidelines. My docs that I work with like knew my line. As a matter of fact, I was very instrumental in in the hospital I'm working, having them stop doing what's called selective embryo reduction, when people have too many babies and they decide to knock one off or something like that. And actually, I signed a paper so that I wasn't going to have anything to do with it. The rest of the staff were like, "Do we have that option?" And I'm like, "Yes, you have that option." And it actually moved to having that stopped completely at the hospital in which I was practicing. But nonetheless, after that particular mission in Peru, it was very clear that we needed to come home and that God was asking us to open a pro-life practice. And I wasn't that girl who was marching around Planned Parenthood. I was that girl who was quietly, probably discreetly, not boldly, but quietly fighting for life every day in the hospital with the patients and in our clinic, where the patients would come in and have those very, very tough conversations and tough decisions to make. And I was good with that, but God was asking me to be more out there, which I was not comfortable. I mean, I'm totally fine talking in front of 5,000 people, but to be that person on the front line that is in front of all of my colleagues, in front of the whole obstetrical community in Denver, in Colorado, where abortion started, to be that girl who says, I'm going to open up a clinic that is totally pro-life from conception to natural death, and we are going to fight for life, and we're going to be bold about it. And even when I think about it, it sort of gives me goosebumps in the sense of, really, did I do that? Because honestly, I think if I would have known in the very beginning what this all would have meant, I probably would not have been brave enough.
I say the same thing all the time. If God had only shown me what it would be like to actually start Students for Life, I think I would have taken a little bit longer to question if I was going to leap into it. I'm glad I didn't know, right? The ignorance was really
exactly, because if you saw the whole elephant, you would have no idea how to take this one down. And instead, he gave me just the bite right in front of my mouth for me to chew one bite at a time. So, but what the thing that's different, I think, than many places in the pro-life world is I came from a fully medical model, and my daughter Abby came from a fully medical model. So I was not familiar at all with the crisis pregnancy center model. So all I knew how to do was practice medicine. And so when we opened our clinic, we opened it, I guess the best way to describe it would be as a doctor's office. And but what we wanted to be able to attract was people who were questioning what to do next when they were finding they were pregnant. And what I knew, because from my old practice, I knew that there's a lot of stereotypes around what an abortion-minded person looks like. But from where I had come from in my old job, I had a much higher percentage of professional women wanting abortions over poor teenagers or college students who made, just found out that they were pregnant. So anyway, what I knew is I had to be attractive enough for a corporate executive to want to come to me and talk about her options when she was pregnant. I have a background in youth ministry. Kids came to me, college kids, teenagers. That was that part was easy for me because that's what that was just a part of my regular life. But I knew I had to be able to capture all of them. And so we started, when we first opened, we opened as an OBGYN practice. And, but we wanted to do that in a way that was safe and beautiful. So we have an office that, the waiting room looks like a living room, and we have beautiful chairs and a fireplace. And when people come in, they're offered water or tea. It's just a lovely place to be. I mean, people do compare it frequently to a spa, that they can't, that this looks like a spa, but it's twofold. I mean, first of all, people like to be in lovely settings, but but second of all, it speaks to our very dignity, right? To our dignity. And when, and I come from a faith-based perspective, and so I come from the idea that that we are sons and daughters of a king, and um, our surroundings could reflect our royal heritage. And when that happens, people start to change inside. They start to think a little differently about themselves, and even in the family dynamic. So say you get a couple come in, or a mom and a daughter, and there's this tension about this pregnancy. Oftentimes someone is leaning towards having the pregnancy, while another person is leaning away from having that pregnancy. And by having a beautiful setting, it kind of dials down the tension a little bit. And for lack of a better word, I would say it brings some civility to a
you reduce the drama a bit.
Yes. And it brings that, it reduces that drama, and it allows for more conversation. And so that was kind of what we were shooting for, was this, I was thinking we were going to have a little bitty OB/GYN clinic with a doctor, nurse practitioner, nurse, just kind of a nice little practice. I had no idea that there was this desire, this craving, this innate need for dignified healthcare. And I didn't even realize, this is how providence is so much better than human thinking, right? And again, I know I'm preaching to the choir when I tell you that, but the idea that God knew how to do that if I could build relationship with people from the beginning, this is what you do, obviously, but if I could build relationship with people from the beginning, with the most intimate parts of their bodies, maybe that's their pap smear, maybe that's STD testing, maybe it's just, maybe it's that they have weird periods or something. So that's where we were starting. Well, we had no idea. Within 6 months, we had guys coming to us and saying, "Will you take care of me too? I can't find a doctor, and there's no place like this." So it took us a couple of years to actually add family medicine, and we evolved because we were Bella Natural Women's Care, then we were Bella Natural Women's Care and Family Wellness. Just recently, we just kind of shortened all that down to Bella Health and Wellness to make it even more compact, but also more welcoming. To be honest, we had to kind of creatively bring down a little bit of the emphasis on the women's healthcare so that we could open it to all. And where we have found that has been so helpful in the pro-life world, and especially in people who are having unexpected pregnancies, is that guys feel super, super safe coming in and talking with us and giving us a call and telling us what's going on. And so that's kind of, it's created a new trusting avenue through their healthcare provider, through that guy's healthcare provider. And that's also made a big difference. So, but early on, we started at 0 patients, and then we expected to have a good number of patients when we were first starting, because there was a lot of people in the pro-life world that were super excited about it. And but we thought that would taper down, and instead it just roared up higher and higher. And we register over 200 new patients every single month. We're just coming up upon 14,000 registered patients, and we have abortion vulnerable people in our office every single day. There's never a time when we don't have someone who is abortion vulnerable, or I don't think there's been a time where we're not at least in the middle of one abortion pill reversal. Last year during COVID, we had 7 going on at the same time with one set of twins. And so it was people were scared to death to be pregnant last year. And so that brought a new challenge. But anyway, what we know is that through that approach of dignified healthcare, we've created a safe access point for people who are considering abortion and looking at their options, and coming to us just from that, but also created relationships, so that when someone is in in a pregnancy that they hadn't planned on, or maybe it's their daughter. In some ways, Kristen, it's kind of like, how Planned Parenthood, they really focus on the 40 and 50-year-olds so that they can get those women. Those women aren't necessarily even going there for their care, but they can market to them. And so then when, their niece or the coworker at work, it finds themselves pregnant, then they send them to Planned Parenthood. In so many ways, we've done the exact same thing. It's just that we've done it in a dignified way.
So Dede, can you tell us what are the services that Bella is offering? How are you distributing the services? Do you have multiple locations? Are you mobile? I was in Denver just 2 months ago, and it was a really dark place. And you could tell there's a lot of folks who are truly in need in this area. So what are the services that you now offer now that you've expanded? Because, you said a lot of really key things. I think one thing I would just want to highlight a couple of things that you said. You talked about, the atmosphere that you're creating within the center when folks first enter. I think that is key because you're right. It's logical that it would actually kind of bring the drama level down when there's moms there pressuring their daughter or vice versa. But then also the men now are calling you, because a lot of pregnancy centers across the country, I feel like they don't really belong here. It's kind of like the women's place. So just two little highlight notes that I took from what you said earlier. But yeah, tell us a little about what are you actually offering there at Bella, and how are you offering it throughout the city?
Sure. So I'll start by saying we have our main office, and then we have two satellites. We have one that's actually near Boulder that we are at just a couple of days a week. And then we have our main, our other satellite office is right by the main big Planned Parenthood here in Denver. So
that's what I was praying at.
Yeah, so you can actually look out the window and see Planned Parenthood right there. And so we provide services in both of those satellites and in Bella. And primarily, we try to do the majority of all of our type of services available at all the clinics. So I think that when you think about a doctor's office, I know you go to a lot of specialty offices, but if you just think of like a PCP, a primary care provider, you're going to be able to go like from a women's care standpoint, your annual exam, your pap smear, STD testing, abnormal periods, ovary pain, endometriosis, perhaps you need surgery, full obstetrical and prenatal care, including, vaginal or C-section delivery. So full comprehensive women's healthcare. So anything that a woman does. Now we would refer out like for perhaps if somebody had cancer and they needed to see a gynecologist oncologist, we would refer out for something like that. Then we provide also full family medicine. So everything from new baby well checkups, regular annual physicals and exams, sports physicals, high blood pressure, GI problems, everything that you would see for that you'd have at a regular primary care. We offer all of those services that you would seek in your primary care office. We do a lot with hormones. We do a lot with bioidentical hormones. It's amazing. Like we have this very unique population of, like if I took one single occupation that's more than anybody else's single occupation in our practice, is actually we take care of a lot of firefighters, and they have huge needs in testosterone. So again, by taking care of people in all kinds of different circumstances in their lives, then when they do find themselves in an unplanned pregnancy, I'm the first one they call. And although I wouldn't ask this of all of my providers, because there's 12 of us, of our providers. But I do give people my cell phone. If somebody's in a pickle, if somebody is considering abortion, or a miscarriage, but let's talk specifically about an abortion. Like, we have so many wins. I can't even count how many wins. But Kristen, what kills me is the losses. And so I had a woman, we had taken care of her. She was actually a nurse. We had taken care of her. She had an 8-month-old child, found herself to be pregnant. Her spouse was extremely abusive, not what she had hoped for in marriage, not what she had hoped for in motherhood, was finding herself pregnant. And she said, I don't know that I have any other choices. And our big thing always is to address the obstacles. Because what I would find 99% of the time is that if I can help people with their fears and their concerns and their obstacles, if that's money, if that's stuff, if it's housing, if it's immigration, like if I can help them with that, that dials everything down, right? And it starts to make for a reasonable conversation. But like with this lady, we really talked about it. I mean, I talked about, the organization, Let Them Live. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. They're amazing in helping people get through like pregnancy, it's like a GoFundMe, and they get them everything they need for a year. And so I used every single tool in my toolbox, and gave her my cell phone. And she texted me and she said, Dede, I appreciate everything you said. I've loved all of my care at Bella. I know you guys want me to have my baby. I'm going for an abortion. I'm heading to the clinic right now. And I was like, crap, and Kristen, our style, again, which is somewhat different than I think crisis pregnancy centers that I have known since we've opened, is my style was to say, all right, I'm praying for you right now. If you get yourself in trouble, if you leave and you are bleeding and you are scared, if you start running a temperature, you call me, because you are not alone, and I will continue to take care of you. I am not wanting for you to kill your baby, but I don't want to lose 2 patients today. So please call me if you're in trouble. And so that's how I approach. And she's back to me, and she's honestly post-abortive and healing. She's in depression. She's having a hard time functioning, having a hard time with next steps, and the best I can do is continue to love her and help her so that's not a decision she makes again.
Wow. I think that's what makes your work so deeply difficult, is that you invest in these personal relationships and you do everything you can, and then people still choose abortion.
Yep.
And I think that's so hard, because I think there's like this narrative sometimes that we hear, I hear from pro-lifers, of like, well, if we just provided women with all of the resources, then there wouldn't be any abortion. And that's why I'm a firm believer. I was like, well, we have to make abortion illegal and unthinkable, because I actually don't think, and I've met women at the pregnancy center when I first got started in pro-life movement who, we said, like, we'll meet whatever need you have, like whatever need there is. And then women still choose abortion. Not all of them, but some of them still would. And I think that's just so heartbreaking. How do you, I guess since you're offering like full medical, so just for the record, Bella does way more than Planned Parenthood provides. Like, right. I always hear about how much of the abortion is, like, you guys, like, just if you had like a little checklist here of Bella versus Planned Parenthood, you would totally be kicking their butt. Right. Which the competitive person in me comes out. That is really exciting. But how are you getting patients? So do you have like paying patients who like I'm kind of thinking like, crap, I was just there for 3 weeks. I should have come, because I haven't gone for an OB checkup exam. And wow, I couldn't find any pro-life OBs here in Pittsburgh, but man, I should have gone.
That would have been perfect.
Crap, I missed out. But so do you have people who just come in and pay cash or with insurance, and then you have another arm where if you're reaching into the community to people who need these medical services?
Yes. So we accept almost all insurances, most major insurances.
Okay.
There are people who are on health share ministries, which is a insurance-esque type of co-op, for lack of a better word. So we accept health share ministries. There are people who actually just don't want to do insurance at all, and they're totally self-pay. And then we have people who don't have enough money, right? So there are people who have really, really no means. So we care for those people who have no means. We have people who are on Medicaid. Now, a lot of people think Medicaid is just like a regular insurance, but on the receiver's end, that's about 11 cents on the dollar that we get. So like for an entire pregnancy, from the moment they come in, say at 6 weeks, until they're 6 weeks postpartum, so including all of their care and their delivery, whether that's a C-section or not, we get $1,100. But we accept Medicaid because, $1,100 is better than no $100. And if someone is pregnant, it's better if they can be on Medicaid and have some.
And just to point everybody to my previous season about socialism sucks and so does abortion, this is what happens when the government sets, because that's what happens in Medicaid.
Right.
The government says, this is all we're willing to pay. And if you as a provider don't want to see those patients, then you don't have to see those patients, which actually ends up being a huge problem with folks on Medicaid trying to find good quality healthcare.
Yes, and that's exactly the situation. And so then you get the underserved people who either have no insurance or have a minimal type of program, and then they are in places who truly advocate, believe with all their heart that it is much better for you, Miss Smith, to have an abortion than to have a child, because if you have a child, it's going to cost you too much money. We can do this can be covered, you can be out the door and without any kind of problem at all. And so that's again where there's such a discrepancy in care, and we really feel like everyone deserves the same level of care regardless of their ability to pay. Now, that being said, we actually haven't really done any advertising. We have primarily been we're actually thinking we ought to really market, but
I was marketing you. I was knocking on those doors. I had our little door knocker was Marisol versus Planned Parenthood, which Marisol is the name of the satellite clinic, right?
Yeah, so the Marisol clinics are owned by Catholic Charities, and they hire us to come in and provide care there. So we are the healthcare providers.
So we're helping. Student Life is trying, but you probably should market yourself a little bit.
Good job. So we've been primarily word of mouth. Now, because we're also with so many insurance payers, again, providentially, the Lord gave us the name Bella, which is at the top of the alphabet. And so we do show up pretty quickly when people are looking who their insurance, who's in network for their insurance. Interesting, a lot of people think that we named Bella because it's beautiful in Italian and Spanish. And the Lord gave us the name Bella, but it was a close friend of ours, and he said, "Oh, for the Latin, right?" And we're like, "Is Latin different in Spanish and Italian?" And he raises an eyebrow and he nods seriously. And he says, "In Latin, Bella means wars, WARS." And we're like, "Oh, now we get it." And we really felt like the Lord was saying, "Yes, I have made everyone wonderfully and beautifully in my image, but make no mistake, what I'm asking you to do is engage in this war."
That's so awesome. That's so neat, though. You guys have this thriving pregnancy whole family healthcare center, but you're not even really advertising it. But yet, if you talk to anyone in the Denver area about, how do we help women, they go, just get them to Bella. That's just the go-to thing. So, I mean, I think you guys have totally, changed the landscape there in Denver, where people realize, wow. Do you think that because you provide the full scale of services, that's why folks are getting so excited? The word of mouth is spreading. Wow, this is something different than a traditional pregnancy center that has limited ultrasound, maybe some STD testing, but no STD treatment.
I do think that I think that people will share when they're experiencing something good, when it's making them feel good and them feel whole. And that's what we're all about, is making people whole. And, and like I said, from the very beginning, I came from a medical background, so I didn't really actually understand the other kind of offering. So, so this is what I knew. But what I do know is that what we're doing is working. We're figuring it out. You know, we're still a nonprofit, so we still have about a 20 to 25% gap. Because like I said, when you're taking care of free people, Medicaid, and you have the operation expenses of a clinic, we still have that gap. So, I mean, the blessing of being a nonprofit is I can raise that money. But this is why medicine is such a mess right now. And you know, a private practice like ours, practically unheard of, because the only way people can make it is if they are under a hospital system. And when you're under a hospital system, you do what that hospital system says. You buy what they say you're going to buy. You practice the way they say that you're going to practice. You're arm in arm with the abortionist next door, and that is how it works. And that is not a bed we're going to get into. You know, we will stay private, and people say, what happens if Biden or some other administration says that you have to refer for abortions? Or in our case, we also do all natural in terms of fertility awareness. You know, if they say you have to provide IUDs and birth control, like, what are you going to do if they say you have to do that or you don't get to receive any reimbursement? You know, people say, oh my gosh, you're going to close. And I'll say, we are not going to close. Like, we will continue to provide care regardless of what the government tells us to do. We have licenses to practice, and no one can question our medicine, because what we're doing is good for people. It is healthy for people. It is life-giving for people. And so no one can question the practice that we're doing, the care that we're giving. So I don't think someone can shut us down on our principles of care. The government might say, we're not going to pay you. And if we're not going to pay you, then insurance companies aren't going to pay you. And then I'm like, so be it. Like, it's not going to stop us.
That's awesome. And sadly, what you're saying, just being this warrior, might actually be needed in the next couple of years, because as we know, with what they're doing, the Biden administration in Washington, D.C., and they completely want to criminalize Catholic and anyone of faith who works in the medical field, and say you have to leave your religion at your parish or church doors, and you have to do this. And we saw in Canada recently where the government shut down the Catholic hospice centers because they won't participate in assisted suicide. And they were, sadly, I think there was some sort of thing where the Catholic hospice centers was operating on government land or had a government land grant, so the government just shut it down. So I'm so glad to see that you guys have a nonprofit. It's very similar to what Tepeyac Family Center in Fairfax, Virginia, Dr. Brashowski, he was on my first season. He's one of my heroes. His practice delivered 2 of our 4 babies. And I'm going to DC in a couple of weeks, so I was thinking, maybe I got to call them for one of my pap smears. I'm bringing it down right now. I just have to travel the country and find pro-life OBGYNs. But I guess my last question to you would be, I guess it's a twofold question. Are there other practices like Bella spreading and popping up across the country? What does that look like? And what would be your advice for a pro-life advocate? I think if you would ask our students for life leaders, what is it that you want to do when you grow up, when you graduate college, high school? Hands down, majority would say, I want to run a pregnancy center. I want to do something tangible in the culture to make a difference. What would be your advice to them? Because I would think this is a model that we would really want to fully develop across the country.
So great question. I'll unpack it just a little bit. So first of all, we do have variations of Bella, like Tepeyac, that's OBGYN. In Green Bay, Wisconsin, there's a great practice, the Gianna Clinic, that is also a blend of family medicine and OB, so similar to ours. In Austin, there's the Vitae Clinic. In Fort Worth, there's Authentic Whole Life. In Gilbert, Arizona, there's Morning Star. We have some, Tampa Bay, there's a clinic in Tampa Bay. So I think that there's several of us that are trying to come up. I think that, to be honest, from a business standpoint, to have family medicine be a part of your clinic not only opens it up and builds relationship with men who are very, very lacking in good healthcare in general across the U.S., in large part because of their own stubbornness. But that's another podcast. But
yes.
But anyway, we do get better revenues from family medicine. So so when you're trying to do something that's more sustainable, that isn't, Rainey's saying millions and millions of dollars to get your clinic running, you've got to think smart if you're also going to provide free care. And that's what we've really worked on doing. We've worked on processes. So we can have process plus practice equals competence. And we can do that over and over. And when you do that, you can create a playbook that people can work with, right? Because the loving a person, the actually delivery of care is the easiest thing we're doing, right? It's actually making this machine work is the most complicated thing that we're doing. And so what I would say to college students, what I would beg college students, I would say, if you have discerned out of some type of religious vocation, and you are trying to find where you could serve the best and have it be a legacy that could go well beyond you and your years and your children and your grandchildren, that generational legacy, then I would beg those college students to go into medical school and to get into those residency programs, whether that's family medicine that has an obstetrical certification, because then you can have a joint kind of diverse practice. So you're both taking care of the family, but you're also delivering babies. Or you're going into the obstetrical gynecological route, because there are very few of us. And I mean, I'm 61 years old. I mean, praise God, like all of my providers are under 40, but I can't get people my age who will commit to, delivering babies at night and having this life that's a hard life to live. But there's also nothing like when you're delivering a baby and you have your hands on a baby's head before the baby is delivered, and the angels are still holding their hands in the womb. They're still hearing the chorus of angels singing. And there is that connection between heaven and earth. And you know that what you're doing will change lives forever. So that would be my recommendation, is be not afraid, have courage. It will take a long time. It isn't getting out of college when I'm 22 and getting into a job, and hopefully by the 25 I'm making $100,000 a year. It's not that, but you know what? It's not a bad living. It's a hard living, but it's a virtuous, it's a heroic life, and that's what I would recommend.
Oh, that's it. Mic drop for you. Dede, how does everyone follow what you're doing there in Denver? How do we get updates of what Bella's doing, what Marisol's doing, what you're doing?
Oh man, you know what? That should have totally been one of those questions you told me ahead of time, so that I could say, oh, you should look at us at whatever, at whatever. Like I don't know that answer. I mean, I know we have like a Facebook page and a Instagram account. I'll have to get that back to you.
All right. You have, Bella Wellness. Is it Bella Wellness?
So BellaWellness.org is our website, and we do have a Facebook page and Instagram account.
Yeah,
and I'll probably have other things. It's just that Remember when I said I was 61 and it's like, you surround people with things that you don't know how to do because what you're doing is just fine.
That's my life. Every year I get I get a little older, and then I get a little dumber about the new hip things that apparently I'm supposed to know about running Students for
You know,
Life.
it's so crazy because I do feel like I'm young and hip, and then we get questions like that, and I'm like,
I know.
you know,
I don't feel old, and then I get surrounded, like, we're gonna be with all 70 of our team members, and I'm like, I'm gonna be one of the oldest people in the room, the top 5 oldest people, and it's gonna be terrible. Like, the jokes I'm gonna tell, they're not gonna get it. Like, like and I'm supposed to be like, and then I go and I speak to our supporters or other pro-life organizations, and they're like, "Wow, you're really with it. You like know what the kids want." I'm like, not, it's not really me.
I know when I say I've been married for 42 years, I'm 61 years old. I mean, it helps that I say that I got married when I was 19, which is fully true. But when you add 42 years and being 61, like those numbers sound way older than I feel. And so it's like, I don't know what the heck happened, but somehow from the time God asked us to start Bella almost 9 years ago to now, I ended up getting old. I don't know what happened.
I know. This year's been 15 years with me since launching Students for Life. I'm like, I don't know where 15 years went. Who knows? I don't know, but just God has a plan, and my goal is just to hold on to the bumper as he drives the car across the interstate at like 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, keep your roller skates on and your knee pads on, man.
That's a better way. I just think it was just like being drugged. So there, I have roller skates on. It's a better illusion in my mind. But thank you so much for all that you're doing in Denver. I'm so bummed I didn't come in as a client, but I will the next time I'm there. You guys are doing phenomenal work, and people are talking about the Bella model across the country. And I've been to several rooms just the past year. People going, "Do you know about Bella in Denver?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know Dede." They're doing incredible work. So I think it's really inspiring to see folks really looking to you all as leaders within this movement. And I hope that we see you all expand in Denver, serving more and more women and families every year. And you all inspired as a whole army of troops across the country. And go get your medical degree if you're contemplating what you want to do outside college. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. I hope you'll subscribe to this podcast and share it with your other pro-life friends and family members, and even maybe some of your pro-choice friends. Bye, guys.